Silvestro Silver Dollar Sam Carollo, June 17, 1896 to June 26, 1970, was a prominent Sicilian-American mobster who led the New Orleans crime family during the early to mid-20th century. He was a major figure in organized crime in Louisiana and the broader southern United States. Carollo's nickname, Silver Dollar Sam, reportedly came from his habit of tipping people with silver dollars. Early life and rise in the Mafia. Silvestro Carollo was born in Sicily and emigrated to the United States as a young man. His family settled in New Orleans, where he quickly became involved in the local underworld, which had a long history of Sicilian Mafia activity. By the 1920s, Carollo had established himself as a key figure in the New Orleans crime family, primarily controlling bootlegging operations during Prohibition. He was mentored by Charles Matranga, the then leader of the New Orleans Mafia, who had significant influence in both local criminal activities and in maintaining relationships with political figures. When Matranga retired, Carollo assumed control of the family in the late 1920s. Leadership of the New Orleans crime family. During his time as boss, Carollo expanded the New Orleans crime family's influence, strengthening its control over local rackets, gambling, narcotics, and labor unions. His empire extended into Texas, where he became involved in oil deals, illegal gambling, and other enterprises. Carollo was known for his shrewdness and ability to avoid legal trouble, which helped him remain a powerful figure in the underworld for decades. He had a reputation for keeping a relatively low profile, unlike some of the more flamboyant crime bosses in other cities. Carollo worked closely with other crime families, maintaining ties to major mafia figures across the United States. He also had strong connections to local political figures in Louisiana, securing protection for his operations through bribes and influence. Legal troubles and deportation. Carollo's leadership was marked by multiple run-ins with the law. In 1934, he was convicted of attempting to bribe a federal officer and was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Upon his release, he resumed his criminal activities and strengthened his control over the family. In 1947, U.S. immigration authorities deported Carollo to his native Sicily due to his criminal record. However, his absence from the United States was relatively brief. By the early 1950s, he had illegally returned to New Orleans and resumed his role as an influential figure in organized crime, although by then, Carlos Marcello had begun consolidating power and would eventually succeed him as the head of the family. Carlos Marcello and succession. When Carollo was deported, Carlos Marcello, who had risen through the ranks under Carollo, took over leadership of the New Orleans crime family. Marcello expanded the organization significantly, building on the foundation laid by Carollo. Despite his deportation, Carollo reportedly continued to advise and collaborate with Marcello and other crime figures in the United States from Sicily. Carollo's influence waned as Marcello's power grew, but he remained a respected figure within the Mafia. He is often credited with setting up much of the groundwork for the expansion of organized crime in Louisiana, particularly in gambling and narcotics trafficking. Final years and death. After returning to Sicily, Carollo lived out the rest of his life relatively quietly, compared to his earlier years. He passed away on June 26, 1970, at the age of 74. Despite his lower profile in his later years, Carollo's legacy in organized crime, particularly in the southern United States, endures. His time as the head of the New Orleans Mafia paved the way for his successors, most notably Carlos Marcello, who would become one of the most powerful mafia bosses in America. Legacy. Silvestro Carollo is remembered as one of the key figures in the history of organized crime in the South. His ability to navigate both the criminal and political worlds allowed him to dominate the New Orleans underworld for decades. His protege, Carlos Marcello, would go on to build an even more powerful criminal empire, but Carollo's role in shaping the New Orleans Mafia's early years is undeniable. Carollo's time as boss marked an era of growth for the New Orleans Mafia, as it became more structured and influential, both regionally and nationally. His connections with other mafia families, his ability to evade law enforcement, and his mentorship of Marcello helped solidify the family's place in the broader American mafia landscape. Thanks for tuning into Sika True Crime Docs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating tales. Your support helps us keep bringing these stories to life. See you in the next episode.